The crystal towers of Crysthera burned. Ambassador Vexhai watched from his office window as the emergency evacuation ships lifted off from the capital city. Each ship carried thousands of his people away from their dying world. The beautiful spires that had taken centuries to grow were cracking under the heat of orbital bombardment. "Ambassador, we have 30 minutes before the Krex fleet enters weapons range," said his aide, Miratel. Her crystalline skin flickered with stress patterns that showed deep blue fear mixed with desperate hope. Vexhai turned away from the window. His own skin showed the same patterns. The Krex horde had swept through 16 Zalari worlds in the past month. Entire planets stripped of life. Billions of his people dead or worse. The few survivors told stories that made even the bravest Zalari shake with terror. "Any response to our distress signals?" he asked. Miratel checked her datapad. "The Thorgan Empire says they are dealing with their own Krex attacks. The Nexus Collective is considering military aid, but wants 6 months to debate it in their Senate. The Vaxan Republic," she paused. "The Vaxan Republic no longer exists. The Krex consumed their home system yesterday." Vexhai felt his hope dying. The Zalari were a peaceful people. They had built their civilization on harmony and cooperation. Their technology was advanced but focused on healing and creation, not destruction. They had no weapons that could stop the Krex war machines. "Wait," Miratel said, looking surprised. "I'm getting a response from an unknown system. The signal is strange. Strange how? The translation matrix is having trouble with their language. It's very aggressive. Lots of words for violence and warfare." Miratel's skin showed confusion patterns. They call themselves humans, and they claim to represent something called the Earth Defense Corps. Earth Defense Corps? Vexhai had never heard of either name. "What do they say?" Miratel activated the holographic display. A bipedal creature appeared in the air between them. It was tall and covered in cloth with strange hair growing from its head. Its skin was a pale color that didn't change with emotions. Most disturbing were its eyes. Small, round, and completely white except for colored centers that seemed to track movement. "This is Admiral Carol Bennett of the Earth Defense Corps," the creature said. Its voice was harsh and flat, nothing like the musical tones of Zalari speech. "We received your distress signal requesting military assistance against hostile forces. Humanity is prepared to provide immediate aid." The message continued. "Our fleet can reach your position in 72 hours. Be advised that human military doctrine may differ from your expectations. We specialize in aggressive intervention against superior enemy forces. Please confirm if you wish to proceed." The hologram flickered off. Vexhai and Miratel stared at each other. 72 hours? Miratel whispered. "The fastest ships in the galaxy would need 2 weeks to reach us from the outer rim. And what did it mean by aggressive intervention?" Vexhai wondered. The translation seemed uncertain about several of their terms. An alarm sounded through the building. The Krex fleet had been detected entering the outer system. They had maybe 6 hours before the bombardment began. "Sir," Miratel said quietly, "we don't have any other choice." Vexhai looked out the window again. Another evacuation ship was struggling to lift off, overloaded with refugees. In the distance, he could see the glow of fires where the outer districts were being evacuated. "Send the confirmation," he said. "Tell these humans we accept their aid." 3 days later, Vexhai stood in the temporary command center that had been built in the deep caverns beneath Crysthara. The Krex had arrived as expected, but instead of beginning their usual pattern of slow planetary consumption, they had stopped at the system's edge. Their scouts had detected the approaching human fleet. "Unknown vessels approaching from Sector 7, reported Captain Hex-4 from the sensor station. Configuration does not match any known species." The main display showed the approaching ships. They were ugly things, all sharp angles and thick armor plating. Nothing like the elegant curves and transparent crystal preferred by civilized species. The ships looked like they were built for ramming rather than graceful travel. "Sir, the lead ship is requesting permission to dock with our command station," Hex-4 said. "They want to coordinate strategy." "Grant permission," Vexhai replied. "Have a diplomatic team meet them in docking bay 3. 30 minutes later, the diplomatic team was back. Their skin patterns showed extreme distress. "Ambassador," said the team leader, "we need to discuss these humans in private." Vexhai met with the diplomatic team in a secure chamber. Their report was disturbing. "The humans are bipedal like us but much larger and denser," the team leader explained. Our medical scans showed bone density 4 times normal levels. Their muscle mass is impossible. And their cardiovascular system, he paused. Sir, their hearts pump a fluid that would dissolve our skin on contact. That's not possible, Vexai said. The scans don't lie, and their behavior is unsettling. They asked detailed questions about Krek's biology and tactics, not to understand how to defend against them, but to understand how to kill them more efficiently. Another team member spoke up. They brought weapons, sir. Devices designed specifically to cause maximum biological damage, and they seemed excited about the opportunity to use them. Excited? They were looking forward to the battle. One of them said it had been too long since we had a good fight. Another mentioned that Krek's ships would make excellent target practice. Vexai felt his hope turning to dread. What kind of species considers warfare to be entertainment? There's more, sir, the team leader continued. We asked about their homeworld, trying to make polite conversation. They said they evolved on something they called a Class 12 Deathworld. When we asked what that meant, they listed the environmental hazards, which were massive predators, deadly weather patterns, natural disasters, poisonous atmosphere in some regions, radiation levels that would kill most species, and gravity twice what we consider normal. The diplomat's skin showed fear patterns. They described these conditions as challenging but manageable. The chamber fell silent. Vexai considered their situation. The Kreks were monsters that had destroyed civilizations across the galaxy, but these humans might be something worse. Sir, Miratel said from the doorway, the human commander is requesting a meeting with you personally. Something about finalizing battle plans. Vexai looked at his terrified diplomatic team, then at the tactical display showing Krek ships gathering at the system's edge. Tell the human commander I'll meet with him, he said. We've come this far. As his staff prepared for the meeting, Vexai wondered if they had just invited devils to fight demons. But with his people dying and his worlds burning, even devils might be preferable to extinction. The real question was, what would be left of the galaxy when the fighting was over? Commander Jake Morrison stood in the main docking bay of the UES Vengeance, watching the Zalari shuttle approach through the atmospheric barrier. The alien craft was beautiful in its own way. All smooth curves and crystal panels that caught the light like a soap bubble. It moved with the gentle grace of something built by people who had never worried about enemy fire. Pretty, said Sergeant Tony Rodriguez, standing beside him. Looks like it would shatter if you sneezed on it. Play nice, Tony, Jake said. These people are scared enough already. The shuttle landed with barely a whisper. Jake had to admit it was impressive technology, even if it looked fragile. The airlock opened and the first Zalari stepped out. Jake had seen the briefing files, but meeting them in person was still a shock. They were roughly human-sized but built like living glass sculptures. Their skin was translucent and seemed to shift colors based on their emotions. Right now, the delegation was showing a lot of blue and purple patterns that the computer translated as fear and uncertainty. The lead Zalari approached with careful steps. His movements were precise but delicate, like he was afraid of breaking something. When he spoke, his voice was musical and soft. Greetings. I am Ambassador Vexai of the Zalari Federation. We are grateful for your assistance in our time of need. Commander Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Corps, Jake replied, offering his hand in greeting. The ambassador stared at the outstretched hand for a moment, then carefully extended his own. When their hands met, Jake felt how fragile the Zalari's fingers were. The alien's skin was cool and smooth, like touching polished marble. Please follow me to the briefing room, Jake said. We'll discuss our strategy for dealing with the Kreks. As they walked through the ship's corridors, Jake noticed the Zalari delegation staying very close together. They kept looking around nervously at the metal walls and harsh lighting. Everything about human ship design was probably alien to them. The briefing room was set up with a large tactical display showing the current system layout. Jake's senior staff was already assembled. Lisa Grant at the tactical station, Dr. Amy Walsh reviewing medical data, and Chief Engineer Paul Kim checking equipment readouts. Please take a seat, Jake said, gesturing to chairs around the conference table. The Zalari sat down carefully, their skin patterns still showing stress. Ambassador Vexai looked at the tactical display with obvious confusion. Commander Morrison, we must ask, how did your fleet travel so quickly? Our calculations suggest the journey from your system should have taken weeks. We used our new jump drive technology, Lisa Grant answered. Cuts travel time by about 80%. That's impossible according to our physics, one of the Zalari scientists said. The energy requirements alone would destroy any ship. Paul Kim laughed. Yeah, it does put a lot of stress on the hull. We lose about 1 ship in 50 to catastrophic drive failure, but it's worth it for the tactical advantage. The Zalari delegation's skin patterns immediately shifted to deep blue alarm. They were staring at Paul like he had just admitted to murder. You accept a 2% casualty rate as acceptable losses? Ambassador Vexhai asked quietly. For this mission, sure, Jake said. We've faced worse odds. Dr. Walsh looked up from her medical scanner. Speaking of odds, I need to run some basic medical scans on your people, Ambassador. Standard procedure when working with new species. Of course, Vexhai said, though his skin showed uncertainty. Dr. Walsh activated her scanner and pointed it at the ambassador. Immediately, alarms started blaring from her equipment. That's weird, she muttered, adjusting settings. Computer, run full diagnostic on medical scanner. Diagnostic complete. All systems functioning normally, the computer announced. Then why are these readings so... Amy paused, looking at the data again. Commander, I'm reading impossible biological data from our guests. Impossible how? Jake asked. Well, their bone density is about 1/10 of human normal. Muscle mass is minimal. Cardiovascular efficiency is incredibly low. She looked puzzled. According to these readings, they shouldn't be able to survive in anything above 0.3 g gravity, or temperatures outside a very narrow range. The Zalari were looking increasingly uncomfortable. Ambassador Vexhai spoke up. Doctor, perhaps your equipment is calibrated for your own species. What are normal readings for humans? Amy looked at her scanner, then at Jake. Should I tell them? Go ahead, Jake said. No point in hiding it. Well, Amy began. Human bone density averages about 40 times what I'm reading from you. Our muscle mass is roughly 15 times greater. We can survive in gravity up to 3 g for extended periods. Temperature tolerance ranges from about -40 to +60 Celsius. The Zalari delegation's skin went completely white. That's not possible, whispered one of the scientists. No biological organism could survive those conditions. Actually, those are pretty mild conditions for humans, Tony Rodriguez said cheerfully. Back home, I used to go hiking in places where the temperature hit -50. Great exercise. -50? Vexhai sounded faint. That would freeze our blood solid. Yeah, you guys seem pretty fragile, Tony continued. No offense. I mean, your planet must be really safe if you evolve so delicate. Lisa Grant pulled up the file on Earth. Want to see our homeworld data? I'm not sure we do, Vexhai said, but he was looking at the display anyway. The data scrolled past. Gravity 1.0 g. Average temperatures ranging from -80 to +70 Celsius. Massive weather systems, active volcanism, frequent asteroid impacts, deadly radiation from solar flares, and a list of predator species that made the Zalari delegation's skin turn increasingly pale. This is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld, Paul Kim said proudly. Only 12 other known planets are rated as more dangerous to life. You evolved on a Deathworld? Vexhai asked weakly. Yeah, it's great, Tony said. Keeps you sharp. Nothing like a good survival challenge to build character. Dr. Walsh was still reading her scanner data. Commander, there's something else. The Zalari digestive system is incredibly specialized. They can only process very specific nutrients. Most of what we consider normal food would be toxic to them. Speaking of food, Jake said, we were planning to invite you to dinner. What do you normally eat? Crystallized nutrients grown in sterile environments, Vexhai answered. Very mild flavors, carefully balanced chemistry. That sounds boring, Lisa said. Paul, what's the galley serving tonight? Chili night, Paul grinned. Extra hot the way the crew likes it. Chili? Vexhai asked. Spicy food made with hot peppers, Amy explained. The chemical compounds would probably burn right through your digestive system. You eat food that would damage your own bodies? Another Zalari asked. Nah, we've built up tolerance, Tony said. I can eat stuff that would make most humans cry. It's fun. The Zalari delegation was huddled together now, their skin showing pure terror patterns. Ambassador Vexhai looked like he was reconsidering every decision that had led to this moment. Commander Morrison, he said carefully, perhaps we should discuss exactly what your military intervention will involve. Sure, Jake said, activating the tactical display. We've identified the Krex fleet positions. Standard human doctrine calls for aggressive direct engagement. We'll hit them hard and fast, probably board their ships for close combat. Close combat? Vexhi's voice was barely a whisper. Hand-to-hand fighting inside enemy ships, Tony explained enthusiastically. It's the best way to really take them apart. Nothing beats personal combat for efficiency. The Solari ambassador looked around the room at the humans, these creatures from a death world who ate poison for fun and considered ship-to-ship combat a form of entertainment. His skin had gone completely transparent with fear. We may have made a mistake, he said quietly. Don't worry, Jake said, patting the ambassador gently on the shoulder. We'll take good care of the Krex problem. Vexhi looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Krex fleet, then at the humans who were already discussing battle plans with obvious excitement. He was beginning to think the cure might be worse than the disease. War leader Gorthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Bone Crusher, watching the sensor displays with growing excitement. The Zalari system lay before them like a feast waiting to be consumed. 16 worlds already stripped clean, billions of the crystal-skinned prey processed into nutrients for the Horde. This system would be no different. War leader, growled his second-in-command. The scouts report unknown vessels in the system. New prey species, perhaps. Gorthak's massive jaws spread in what might have been a smile. The Krex were built for war, 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates with forearms ending in razor-sharp claws. They had conquered 17 star systems without meeting serious resistance. Most species fled at the first sight of Krex ships. How many vessels? Gorthak asked. 37 ships. Crude design, heavy armor. They appear to be moving to intercept us. Gorthak laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Foolish. Signal the fleet. We feed well today. On the UES Vengeance, Commander Jake Morrison watched the Krex formation approaching. The enemy ships were massive, easily twice the size of human vessels and covered in what looked like bone and metal spikes. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never met an equal. Tactical analysis, Lisa, Jake ordered. 43 Krex ships, varying sizes. Their weapons appear to be plasma-based, designed for burning through ship hulls. No shields, but extremely heavy armor. Lisa Grant studied her displays. Jake, these things are built like flying fortresses. Good, Tony Rodriguez said from his position at the Marine Station. I was worried this would be too easy. Dr. Amy Walsh looked up from her medical station. I've been analyzing the Krex biological data the Zalari provided. These things are apex predators. Natural weapons, redundant organs, pain tolerance that's off the charts. Sounds like fun, Tony grinned. Ambassador Vexhi stood at the back of the bridge, his skin showing deep concern patterns. Commander, perhaps we should attempt communication first. The Krex might be willing to negotiate. Jake looked at him with surprise. Ambassador, didn't you say they killed billions of your people? Yes, but then we're past negotiation. Jake turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the fleet. All ships weapons free. Let's show these things how Earth fights. The human fleet moved forward to meet the Krex. To the Zalari observers, it looked like 37 tiny ships charging toward 43 giants. It should have been suicide. The battle began when the Krex opened fire at maximum range. Streams of superheated plasma reached across space toward the human ships, but instead of trying to avoid the fire, the humans flew directly into it. Shields down to 60%, Lisa reported calmly. Hull breach on Deck 7. Damage control teams responding, Paul Kim announced. Patching the breach now. Vexhi watched in horror as human crew members ran toward the damaged section instead of away from it. They're moving toward the danger, he whispered to himself. The human fleet reached weapons range and opened fire. Their weapons were different from anything the Krex had seen. Kinetic projectiles that punched through armor like it was paper, and energy beams that seemed designed specifically to cause maximum damage. But what shocked the Krex was that the humans didn't stop there. As the first Krex ship began to list with critical damage, a human vessel accelerated directly toward it. What are they doing? Gorthak roared. The human ship rammed the damaged Krex vessel at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of plasma and debris. They destroyed themselves to take out one of ours, his second-in-command said in disbelief. On the Vengeance, Jake was coordinating the battle. Good ramming run by the Soul. Lisa, target their command ship. Commander, Vexhi said urgently. The Soul had 300 crew members aboard. Yes, Jake said. They died well. The ambassador's skin went pale. You speak of their deaths as if they were a victory. They took out a ship twice their size, Tony said. That's good trading. The battle continued to escalate. Human ships that should have retreated when damaged instead pressed their attacks. Crews worked in conditions that would kill most species. Radiation leaks, toxic atmosphere breaches, gravity failures, and kept fighting. Engineer Paul Kim coordinated the most insane part of the battle. Attention all ships, we're going to try something new. Overload your reactor cores and use them as weapons. 3 human ships flew directly into the Krex formation with their reactors set to explode. The resulting detonations took out 6 Krex vessels and crippled 4 more. Gorthak stared at the tactical display in shock. They're using their own ships as bombs. War leader, should we retreat and regroup? For the first time in his career, Gorthak considered running from prey. These humans fought like no species he had ever encountered. They didn't just accept casualties, they seemed to embrace them. The tide of battle turned when Tony Rodriguez announced, "Marines ready for boarding action." In the middle of a space battle? HFY asked. "Best time," Tony said cheerfully. "They won't expect it." Human assault shuttles launched from the remaining ships, flying through the debris field toward damaged Krex vessels. The shuttles were barely more than armored boxes with engines, but they moved with purpose. The first boarding action took place on a Krex destroyer. Tony led 12 Marines through a hull breach into a ship designed for consuming organic matter. The interior was a nightmare of grinding machinery and acid baths. "Now this is what I call interior decorating," Tony said over the comm, firing his rifle at Krex defenders. The Krex warriors were 8-foot killing machines with natural weapons and armor. The humans were smaller, weaker, and carrying primitive slug throwers. It should have been a massacre. It was, just not the way anyone expected. The humans fought with a desperation and fury that the Krex had never encountered. When their weapons ran out, they used improvised explosives. When those were gone, they fought with knives and bare hands. When the Krex wounded them, they kept fighting until they physically couldn't move. Tony Rodriguez found himself face to face with a Krex warrior in the ship's central corridor. The alien was twice his size and armed with natural claws that could cut through steel. "Come on then," Tony said, pulling out his combat knife. "Let's dance." The fight lasted 3 minutes. When it was over, Tony was bleeding from a dozen wounds but still standing. The Krex warrior was not. Across the ship, similar scenes played out. Humans dying but taking Krex with them. Humans too injured to fight properly, still managing to damage critical systems. On the Bone Crusher, Gorthak received reports that chilled him to his bones. The prey boarded the Fang Render. His communications officer reported, "The ship is lost." How many of them were on board? 12! 12! Gorthak couldn't believe it. 12 prey animals captured a ship with 200 warriors? "Yes, war leader. And they're moving to the next ship." Gorthak looked at the tactical display. Half his fleet was destroyed or crippled. The humans had lost 2/3 of their ships, but the survivors were still attacking. "War leader," his second-in-command said quietly, "these are not prey animals." For the first time in Krex history, Gorthak gave the order to retreat. On the Vengeance, Jake watched the Krex fleet pulling back. "All ships do not pursue. Regroup and tend to wounded." HFY approached him with trembling hands. "Commander, what just happened?" "We won," Jake said simply. "But the cost? So many dead." "That's war, Ambassador," Jake said. "The Krex learned something today. We're not prey." Tony Rodriguez's voice came over the comm from the captured Krex ship. "Hey, Commander, you should see this place. It's like they built a slaughterhouse that flies. No wonder they're so mean." Dr. Amy Walsh was already preparing medical teams. Casualty reports coming in. "It's bad, but we've had worse." HFY looked around the bridge at the humans calmly discussing their devastating battle as if it were routine. His skin showed patterns of awe mixed with terror. "What kind of species are you?" he whispered. Jake looked at him with genuine confusion. "We're human. What did you expect?" War leader Gorthak paced the bridge of his flagship like a caged predator. The emergency fleet assembly had brought together every Krex ship within 3 sectors, over 200 vessels of war. The largest military force in Krex history floated in the darkness between stars, waiting for his command. "War leader," his intelligence officer reported, "we have completed analysis of the human combat footage." "Show me." The holographic display activated, showing scenes from the previous battle. Gorthek watched human marines fighting through his ships, saw the insane ramming attacks, witnessed prey species that refused to die properly. The humans are clearly inferior physically, the analyst began. Smaller, weaker, less natural armor. But their behavior is unprecedented. Explain. They appear to have no instinct for self-preservation. Normal prey animals flee when faced with superior force. These humans attack. When wounded, prey animals seek safety. These humans continue fighting until death. Gorthak's claws scraped against the metal deck. They are still just prey. We simply underestimated them. War leader, another officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. The image of Commander Jake Morrison appeared on the main display. The human looked tired but determined. Behind him, Gorthak could see the bridge of a warship. Cramped, functional, built for fighting rather than intimidation. War leader Gorthak, I presume, Jake said. I'm Commander Morrison. We need to talk. Prey does not speak to hunters, Gorthak growled. Jake's expression didn't change. That's where you're wrong. We're not prey. We're the thing that prey becomes when it gets tired of running. You destroyed half my fleet through treachery and suicide attacks. When I return with my full force, you will learn the price of defying the Kreks. Actually, Jake said calmly, we were holding back last time. Holding back? Gorthak laughed. You lost most of your ships. We were trying to minimize collateral damage to Zalari installations. That won't be a concern this time. Jake leaned forward. War leader, you've made a mistake. You think you're the apex predator in this galaxy. You're not. The transmission ended. Gorthak stared at the blank screen, fury building in his chest. War leader, his second in command, said carefully, perhaps we should reconsider this attack. The prey mocks us, Gorthak roared. We will show them what it means to challenge the Kreks horde. 3 days later, the massive Kreks fleet entered the Zalari system. But instead of the handful of human ships they expected to find, the sensors showed nothing. Where are they? Gorthak demanded. Unknown, war leader. Long-range sensors show no human vessels in the system. They fled, Gorthak said with satisfaction. Begin the assault on the Zalari worlds. The Kreks fleet moved toward the inner planets. That's when the attacks began. The first ship to die was the destroyer Flesh Tearer. It was patrolling the outer asteroid belt when something emerged from the rocks. A single human fighter craft that had been waiting in the shadows. The fighter's weapons tore through the destroyer's hull before vanishing back into the asteroids. One small craft destroyed the Flesh Tearer. Gorthak couldn't believe the reports. Yes, war leader. It appeared to be using the asteroids for cover. Before Gorthak could respond, another report came in. 2 more ships attacked while investigating a nebula. Human vessels had been hiding in the radiation cloud, invisible to Krek sensors. They're not fighting us directly, his tactical officer realized. They're hunting us. Over the next 6 hours, the pattern became clear. The humans had scattered their remaining ships throughout the system, using every piece of cover available. They would strike without warning, destroy or cripple a Krek ship, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. Lisa Grant coordinated the campaign from her hidden position inside a comet's tail. Sierra team, you have 3 Krek ships approaching your sector. Wait until they separate, then take the smallest one. Copy that, Control, came the reply. These guys don't know how to fight dirty, do they? They're learning, Lisa said grimly. The psychological warfare was as effective as the physical attacks. The Kreks had never been hunted before. They were used to being the predators, moving in massive fleets that crushed all resistance. Now they were scattered across a star system, never knowing when death would come from the darkness. On the Bone Crusher, Gorthak was losing control of his fleet. War leader, the pack hunter requests permission to withdraw from its patrol sector, his communications officer reported. Denied. We do not flee from prey. War leader, that's the 6th ship to request withdrawal. The crews are becoming nervous. Gorthak had never heard that word applied to Kreks warriors before. The breaking point came when Tony Rodriguez led a boarding action against the battleship Soul Render. The massive ship was hiding in the shadow of a gas giant, thinking itself safe. Tony's team approached in a captured Kreks shuttle, broadcasting the correct identification codes. They docked with the Soul Render and emerged into a ship designed for processing organic matter. The corridors were lined with grinding machinery and acid dispensers. The air itself was toxic to most species. Feels like home, Tony said cheerfully. leading his Marines deeper into the ship. The Krex crew never understood what hit them. These humans didn't just fight in the toxic environment, they thrived in it. They used the ship's own deadly machinery as weapons, turning processing equipment into traps for the Krex defenders. When Tony reached the bridge, he found the ship's captain barricaded behind emergency barriers. "Come out," Tony called. "Let's settle this properly." The Krex captain emerged slowly. He was a veteran warrior, scarred from 100 battles, armed with natural weapons that could tear through steel. "You are small prey," the captain growled. "How do you think to defeat me?" "Experience," Tony said and attacked. The fight was brutal and personal. The Krex captain was stronger and better armed, but Tony had something the alien couldn't understand: the absolute refusal to give up. When the Krex wounded him, he kept fighting. When his weapons broke, he improvised new ones. When the captain thought victory was certain, Tony proved him wrong. The battle ended with both fighters barely alive, but only one still standing. "Control, this is Rodriguez," Tony gasped into his comm. "Soul render is secure. Uploading their navigation data now." The navigation data revealed the location of every Krex ship in the system. Within hours, human strike teams were hitting targets that thought they were safely hidden. Gorthak watched his fleet dissolve around him. Ships destroyed, crews demoralized. His carefully planned invasion turned into a nightmare of guerrilla warfare. "War leader," his second-in-command said quietly, "we must withdraw. The Krex do not retreat. War leader, we have lost 47 ships. The humans have lost 3. This is not battle. This is slaughter." Gorthak looked at the tactical display. Red markers showed destroyed Krex vessels scattered throughout the system. The few remaining green markers representing his fleet were clustered together like frightened animals. For the second time in his career, Gorthak faced an enemy he couldn't defeat. But this time was worse. This time he understood that the humans weren't just winning, they were enjoying it. A new transmission appeared on his screen. Commander Morrison again, but this time he was standing on the bridge of the Soul Render. "War leader," Jake said, "I believe the ship belongs to you. We've made some improvements." Behind him, Gorthak could see his warriors in chains. Human Marines standing guard with casual confidence. "This is impossible," Gorthak whispered. "This is what happens when you hunt humans," Jake replied. "We hunt back." "And war leader, we're better at it than you are." The screen went dark. Gorthak stood in silence, feeling something he had never experienced before. Fear. His prey had become his predator. And somewhere in the darkness of space they were still hunting. The victory celebration aboard the UES Vengeance was unlike anything Ambassador Vexai had ever witnessed. The human crew gathered in their mess hall, sharing food and drink while recounting the battle with obvious enthusiasm. They spoke of near-death experiences as if they were amusing stories. "So there I was," Tony Rodriguez was saying, "face to face with this 8-foot monster, and my rifle jams. So I figure, what the hell, and I charge him with a knife." The other humans laughed and cheered. Vexai's skin showed confusion patterns. "You find humor in nearly dying?" "Tony's got 9 lives, Dr. Amy Walsh said, patching up a cut on his arm. "We're pretty sure he's part cat." "The medical readings suggest otherwise," Vexai said seriously. This caused another round of laughter. Commander Jake Morrison approached with 2 cups, one containing water for the ambassador, the other holding something that smelled like industrial solvent. "Ambassador, we need to discuss what happens next," Jake said, settling into a chair that looked like it could survive a bomb blast. "The Krex are retreating," Vexai said. "Surely they will not return." "Oh, they'll be back," Lisa Grant said from across the table. "But not for a while. Word will spread about what happened here." The Krex reputation just took a serious hit. Paul Kim looked up from his tablet. "Speaking of reputations, Commander, I've been monitoring galactic communications. News of the battle is spreading fast." "What kind of news?" Jake asked. "Mixed reactions. The peaceful species are grateful but nervous. The Thorgan Empire is asking questions about human military capabilities. And there are some interesting responses from the darker corners of the galaxy." Vexai felt his hope mixing with new fears. "What do you mean?" Amy Walsh answered while cleaning her medical equipment. "Paul means that every aggressive species in the galaxy now knows humanity exists. And they're all wondering if we're a threat." "Are you?" Vexai asked quietly. The humans exchanged glances. Jake spoke carefully. We're not aggressive by nature, Ambassador. But we don't back down from fights either. Your definition of not aggressive may differ from others, Vexhai observed. You just hunted the Krex through an entire star system. They started it, Tony said simply. We just finished it. The conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Lisa Grant checked her station. Commander, we're receiving multiple transmissions from across the galaxy. Looks like first contact requests. How many? Jake asked. 17 so far and more coming in. The Altarian Republic wants to establish diplomatic relations. The Nexus Collective is offering technology exchanges. The Vegan Federation is asking about defensive alliances. And the Shadowkin Imperium is demanding we stay out of their territory, Paul added, reading over her shoulder. Who are the Shadowkin? Jake asked. Vexhai's skin went pale. A species that makes the Krex look civilized. They control 12 systems through terror and slavery. If they see you as a threat, let them come, Tony said cheerfully. I could use the exercise. Dr. Walsh stood up, her medical bag in hand. Commander, I need to check on the wounded. We lost 43 crew members in this operation. The mood in the room sobered slightly. Jake nodded. Make sure their families get full honors and benefits. As Amy left, Vexhai realized something important about these humans. They mourned their dead, but they didn't let grief paralyze them. They acknowledged loss and moved forward. Ambassador, Jake said, Earth Command has authorized me to establish a permanent human presence in this sector. We're going to build a base on one of your outer worlds. A military base. Defensive installation, Lisa corrected. We'll help protect the Zalari worlds and provide security for other peaceful species in the region. And if other aggressive species decide to test you, then they'll learn the same lesson the Krex did, Jake said simply. Over the next few hours, more communications poured in. The peaceful Antarian Assembly requested human protection for their trade routes. The warlike Brak Confederacy issued threats and demands. The mysterious Voidstalkers sent a single message. We are watching. Paul Kim compiled the data. Commander, based on these responses, I'd say the galaxy is splitting into 3 camps. Those who want our protection, those who want to fight us, and those who want to study us. Any suggestions on how to handle this? Jake asked. Carefully, Amy Walsh said, returning from her medical rounds. We've just announced to the galaxy that Earth produces warriors who can defeat the Krex in direct combat. That's going to have consequences. Vexhai had been listening to the conversations with growing understanding. You don't realize what you've done, do you? Enlighten us, Jake said. The Krex have been the nightmare species for 2,000 years. They've destroyed civilizations, consumed entire worlds, made whole sectors of space uninhabitable. Every peaceful species in the galaxy fears them. And, Tony prompted, you didn't just defeat them. You humiliated them. You made them run. Vexhai's skin showed amazement patterns. Do you understand what that means to species who have lived in terror for centuries? It means they're free, Lisa said. It means you're now responsible for that freedom, Vexhai corrected. Every peaceful species will look to humanity for protection. Every aggressive species will see you as the ultimate challenge. You've just painted targets on every human world. Jake was quiet for a moment considering this. Then we'd better be ready. A new transmission arrived, this one from Earth Command. Admiral Carol Bennett appeared on the main screen, her expression serious. Commander Morrison, congratulations on a successful mission. However, the political situation has become complicated. How complicated? Jake asked. The Krex Horde has issued a formal declaration of war against humanity. The Shadowkin Imperium is mobilizing fleets. The Thorgan Empire wants to discuss our military capabilities, and the Galactic Council is demanding we appear before them to explain our actions. Any good news? Tony asked. 14 species have formally requested defensive alliances. The peaceful worlds are lining up to join what they're calling the Human Protection Zone. Jake looked around at his crew, then at Ambassador Vexhai. Admiral, request permission to remain in this sector and establish our defensive base as planned. Permission granted. Additional fleets are being dispatched to support you. Morrison, you just started something that's going to reshape the galaxy. The transmission ended. The mess hall was quiet for a moment. Well, Paul Kim said finally. This should be interesting. Tony Rodriguez grinned. I love it when things get interesting. Dr. Walsh shook her head. You're all insane. We just made enemies of half the galaxy. Better to have enemies who respect you than friends who don't, Jake said. Ambassador Vexhai stood up slowly, his skin showing complex patterns of gratitude, fear, and determination. Commander Morrison, the Zalari Federation formally requests membership in this human protection zone. Granted, Jake said immediately. And Commander? Thank you. For the first time in our history, we don't have to fear the darkness between the stars. Don't thank us yet, Jake warned. This is just the beginning. The real test comes when the galaxy decides what to do about humanity. Later that night, Jake stood alone on the observation deck looking out at the stars. Lisa Grant joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Second thoughts? She asked. About saving the Zalari? No, about what comes next. Jake paused. We just announced to every hostile species in the galaxy that Earth exists and that we're good at war. Could be worse, Lisa said. How? We could be bad at war. Jake laughed despite himself. Point taken. In the distance, the lights of Zalari evacuation ships were returning to their homeworlds. For the first time in months, they felt safe enough to come home. But across the galaxy, in the dark spaces between stars, other powers were making plans. Some saw humanity as saviors. Others saw them as threats to be eliminated. And a few saw them as the ultimate prey. The galaxy would never be the same. And neither would humanity. The age of human expansion had begun whether Earth wanted it or not. And as Jake Morrison watched the stars, he knew that the next time humanity faced a threat, the entire galaxy would be watching to see what these Deathworld survivors could really do. The question wasn't whether humanity was ready for the galaxy. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for humanity.